I became rich by using the beauty system. And Yang was forced to resign because of her resistance to the company's unspoken rules. An accident not only awakened her female supporting consciousness, but also bound a super powerful beauty system. A miserable female supporting role in the control group. Har. Why? She just couldn't believe that she couldn't find a smooth road with the beauty system in her hand. Ding. Task 1, please sell 100 copies of the Ancient Rose ointment. Ding, task completed. Reward the secret recipe of the fragrant bubble ball, please sell 1,000 copies. Ding, congratulations to the host for achieving the reputation achievement of emerging, and reward the host with a permanent, graceful figure waist. Ding, task 5. Chapter 1, Unspoken Rules. And Yang, what's wrong with you? It's just accompanying Mr. Chen for a drink and a dance, right? All you did was hold his waist, and you act like he's asking for your life. Is it really that serious? What's with this righteous virgin act? Who are you trying to impress? I'm telling you, this contract from Mr. Chen is crucial for the company. No matter what he does tonight, you need to make sure it gets signed. At the far end of the corridor, in a corner, a thin man was angrily reprimanding a young woman. His finger, waving in the air, jabbed at her forehead several times. The girl was about 20 years old, dressed plainly and simply. She had a slender and tall figure, and her long black hair was loosely tied in a low ponytail, leaving her graceful, swan-like neck exposed. At this moment, the girl had her head lowered, but it was impossible to conceal her strikingly beautiful and delicate features. Her brows, shaped like crescent moons, were furrowed slightly, and her fair, porcelain skin now had an even colder hue. Manager Hao had vented his anger, but when he saw Yang, who stood before him with her head lowered, her silence making her appear lifeless, a surge of anger welled up inside him. I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Now go back and apologize to Mr. Chen right away, stay with him and make sure he has a good time. Once the contract is signed, you'll get your rewards. Don't think too much about it, dignity doesn't matter as much as money. That's the way the world works. You have to know how to adapt, don't be foolish. And Yang, head still lowered, bit down on her teeth, her cold fingertips digging into her palm. She was overwhelmed with shame and indignation. Was that scene just about drinking and holding his waist? She had dignity and principles. The last dinner might have been tolerable, but this time, it was going too far. What did they think she was, a toy for them to manipulate? She couldn't control what others did, but she was someone who refused to compromise. Call her stubborn or youthful and naive, it didn't matter. She wasn't willing to learn these tricks, and frankly, she couldn't bring herself to. Manager Hao, face dark, snapped, what are you standing there for? Go back to the private room now. Listen, and Yang, if this contract isn't signed tonight, you can forget about staying in the company. Get out as soon as you can. At this, and Yang could no longer hold back. She lifted her head to meet his gaze, her voice cold. Manager Hao, I'm a technician in the testing department, not a sales or public relations person. This isn't part of my job. I have the right to refuse. Hao Chun sneered immediately. The right to refuse. I haven't heard such a ridiculous joke in a long time. And Yang stood firm, her eyes locked on his without flinching. Seeing this, Hao Chun completely lost his patience. He didn't want to keep Mr. Chen waiting in the private room. This contract had to be secured. He arrogantly lifted his chin, his eyes looking at Yang without a shred of warmth, as though he regarded her as insignificant as a blade of grass. I don't care what department you're in, but as long as you're working for Taikang Pharmaceuticals, you'll follow your superior's orders. You need to understand that you're paid by Taikang, so you work for Taikang, that's your duty. I don't have time to explain this to you. Just know this, tonight, you must please Mr. Chen. If you offend him, not only will you lose your salary and bonuses, but you'll never make it in this industry. Do you understand? Chapter 2, Rebellion. Upon hearing this, Yang's expression remained calm, and instead, she became even more composed, as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment all along. Perhaps, from the very second she had been tricked into coming to this private room, she had already prepared herself mentally. So, as an employee of Taikang, I'm supposed to obey every order from the company? Including accompanying clients for drinks and flirting after work. Hao Chun was so enraged that he laughed. He looked at this in turn with disdain, not even bothering to consider the situation. Did she really think she could put on a show here? He didn't believe for a second that this woman hadn't used her looks to get ahead in life. Her background and economic situation had been the talk of the office ever since she joined. A poor, orphan girl who had barely managed to finish her university education through part-time jobs. Had she never relied on any man's help to get by these past few years? Now, she was playing the role of a pure, virtuous woman in front of them, probably just a game of cat and mouse to raise her value. He chuckled inwardly. Trying to act tough in front of him? She was far too naive. But whatever, if she could help land Mr. Chen's deal, that was all that mattered. All right, enough of this nonsense. Once the contract is signed, I'll make sure to recognize your contribution in front of the leadership. Now stop stalling and go in, you'll be rewarded, he said, not waiting for her response. He shoved his hands in his pockets and turned to leave for the private room. And Yang was ignored. Her lips curled into a cold smirk. Hao Chun glanced back at the people trailing behind him and sneered. Then, with a grin plastered on his face, he pushed open the private room door. Apologies for the wait, everyone. This little one has a bit of a weak stomach. She was a bit dizzy just now. Mr. Chen, seeing Yang walk in obediently, was pleased. It's all right, it's all right. Young people, their alcohol tolerance is low. A few more rounds, and they'll get better at it. Hao Chun poured a glass of wine and handed it to Yang, signaling her with his eyes. Here, little un, don't forget to toast Mr. Chen. He is a generous man, and he hasn't held it against you. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be so accommodating. And Yang, with her usual expression, walked up to Mr. Chen and said calmly, Mr. Chen, I'd like to toast you. Good, good. Let us drink. Mr. Chen said, his eyes gleaming with lust as he admired her beautiful face. He reached out to grab her hand. But just as he was about to touch her, a glass of red wine suddenly splashed over his head. Mr. Chen. The sudden turn of events caused chaos in the room, with everyone rushing around in a panic. Mr. Chen stood there, his head soaked in red wine, his shirt stained dark red, looking shocking and grotesque. Seizing the opportunity while everyone's attention was on Mr. Chen, and Yang quickly grabbed her handbag, which had been taken from her earlier. If they hadn't snatched it from her when she wasn't paying attention, she would never stayed a second longer with these disgusting people. And Yang, you. Seeing her reclaim the bag, Zhang Jia was frantic, worried that her manager would blame her. She tried to stop Yang from leaving. Get out of my way. Yang glared coldly, her eyes filled with disgust. If the timing were different, she would certainly given this colleague a piece of her mind. With that, she shoved Zhang Jia aside and, before anyone could react, quickly ran out of the private room, slamming the door behind her. Quick, grab her. Damn it. This filthy bitch thinks she can get away. And Yang was desperate to escape from this high-end club. She was moving so fast that when she turned a corner, she collided with someone, and her canvas bag fell to the floor. Chapter 3, Escape. I'm sorry, and Yang immediately apologized, lowering her head, realizing that she had accidentally bumped into someone. No worries, a deep, pleasant male voice echoed through their hallway. At this moment, Yang had no time to care whether their voice sounded nice or not. She didn't even get a good look at the man's face. She hurriedly picked up her canvas bag and rushed toward the club's entrance. The young man stared at the figure disappearing through the club's door, momentarily stunned. Was that her? Just then, a commotion arose. Hurry up, don't let her escape. The man snapped out of his thoughts and saw 3 men in suits rushing toward him. Realization dawned on him. Sorry, could you move aside? The young man pretended to be caught off guard and blocked the hallway. He then asked, taking the initiative, which way are you guys going? The 3 men were in a rush to catch someone, but the man weaved left and right, causing them to stumble and struggle to keep up. Sir, please, one of the men finally reacted and quickly spoke. The man smiled faintly at the situation, leisurely taking a step back. He slowly walked toward the private room at the other end of the hallway. On the other side, after Yang ran out of the club, she didn't hesitate for a moment and sprinted toward the bustling pedestrian street. Soon, she was swallowed up by the crowd. Yang didn't dare to let her guard down. She continued weaving through the crowd, not slowing down until she had exhausted her strength. Only then did her pace begin to slow. She glanced over her shoulder, confirming that she had shaken off the men chasing her. Relieved, she finally took a steady stroll down the lively street. It was 8:30 p.m., the peak of the evening's rush hour. With the upcoming May Day holiday just 2 days away, the whole city was immersed in a festive atmosphere. And Yang sat on a bench by the street and opened her canvas bag to check its contents. Everything, including her identification, was still there. She finally breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking back on what had just happened, she couldn't help but feel frustrated. Those people were truly despicable and shameless. Oh, months of hard work wasted. And Yang couldn't stop herself from sighing. She was a pharmaceutical student in her final semester of college, one of the inevitable stages every graduating student goes through, the internship. Taikang Pharmaceuticals was the company assigned to her by the school for her internship, which would last 6 months. After completing the internship and receiving her degree, she would be able to secure a full-time position. Her grades weren't the top of the class, but she was still considered excellent. Hence, her assigned internship wasn't too bad either. After all, Taikang Pharmaceuticals was a well-known company in the provincial capital. Unfortunately, the company had its issues. The internal atmosphere wasn't great, and it was a battleground full of intrigue, especially in the sales and public relations department, which was closely tied to company profits. Originally, as a technician in the testing department, she had no business with the sales or public relations team. However, her striking appearance soon caught attention, and within a week of joining the company, she was repeatedly urged to transfer to the sales and PR department. They claimed it was a better fit for her. It was laughable, really. As a pharmaceutical student, what could be more suited to her skills than a professional role in her field? Her goal had always been to become a licensed pharmacist. But to obtain the necessary certification, she needed a year of work experience, which was the main reason she endured the discomfort and stayed in her current role. This job didn't just provide a work certificate, it also ensured her basic livelihood. Pursuing national-level professional certifications required more than just time and effort. Reference materials were essential. In this world, money was necessary for everything. Without it, it was almost impossible to get by. Chapter 4, Incident. She has no family to rely on, so she has to rely on working to earn money for all her expenses. Before the internship, she could take on a few part-time jobs, but after officially entering the internship unit, she no longer had extra time to do other part-time jobs. She now has to split her salary into several parts, so this job is very important to her at the moment. After all, she is a fresh graduate and has no relevant work experience. She can't find such a good internship company based on her resume. If those people hadn't been so excessive, she really didn't want to give up this job. The last time they asked her to attend a dinner party on the pretext of work, she didn't think much about it at the time and thought it was a formal gathering to discuss business matters. When she arrived at the place, she saw several CEOs sitting at the dinner table and those in the sales department were all trying to curry favor with them. Only then did she realize the problem. Fortunately, those people still had some manners and did not do anything physical. As for the verbal abuse, she could still tolerate it. After all, hadn't she heard any nasty words in the past few years? But this time, she couldn't bear it. She was even very clear that if she compromised this time, they would definitely intensify their coercion against her next time, and in the end she would become a commodity to be exploited by them. Yes, she really wants a decent job that can guarantee her living, but she wants to live with dignity and principles even more. If one loses even the basic bottom line, what's the difference between him and a dead person? Oh, forget it, just quit and find a new job. If it doesn't work out, the worst that can happen is to take on a few more part-time jobs. And Yang has always believed that there is always a way out and that things will work out when the time comes, so she quickly adjusted her mindset and stood up from the bench carrying her canvas bag. If she really gave up on herself because of this temporary setback, she would not be alive today. Looking at the bustling streets around her, and Yang suddenly wanted to walk home along the street. She used to be busy working to earn a living, and her steps were always in a hurry. After entering the internship unit, she often worked overtime. After finishing the work, she had no thoughts in her mind and just wanted to go home and fall asleep immediately. Thinking about it now, it seemed like she hadn't slowed down for a long time to take a look at the city's street scenes and feel the hustle and bustle of the bustling city. Now she doesn't have to rush or worry about working overtime. And Yang walked slowly on the busy street. She looked at every scene carefully, with a faint smile on her lips. It feels so good to relax your body and mind like this. Gradually, Yang walked out of the bustling city center and turned into the horizontal street on the left. There were various stores on both sides, full of a strong atmosphere of life. Looking at the dazzling array of delicious food, Yang couldn't help swallowing. She hadn't had dinner yet, so she just drank some water at the table. But when she thought of the money in her pocket, she immediately gave up the idea of buying it and decided to go home and have a bowl of noodles. Although she had the nerve to fire the company, the money in her pocket did not give her enough confidence to squander it. It seems that she will have to live frugally and tighten her belt before finding her next job. And Yang had no choice but to speed up and walk home, trying to ignore those food restaurants. Suddenly, she looked straight ahead with a look of astonishment, and her body reacted subconsciously first. Careful! And Yang quickly rushed forward and pushed the person in front of her. Due to inertia, she also fell to the ground. Bang! There was a loud noise caused by an object falling to the ground. Before Yang fell to the ground, she suddenly felt an extremely strong golden light flash before her eyes, but before she could distinguish it clearly, she fainted. Chapter 5: Awakening. In the quiet ward, a young girl was lying on the middle bed. At this moment, she had her eyes closed, her eyelashes trembling slightly, her face was very pale, and there was even a bead of sweat on her forehead. No. No. I didn't. The person on the hospital bed murmured and looked very uneasy, as if he was trapped in some terrible dream. Tilde. Suddenly, the person on the hospital bed sat up, gasping for breath, with an ugly look on his face. Looking at the clean and empty room, Yang's eyes revealed a trace of confusion and doubt. Her temples were throbbing with pain, and her brain seemed to be stuck. She was in a daze and obviously hadn't reacted yet. For a moment, Yang could hardly distinguish between dreams and reality. She seemed to have had a very long dream. In the dream, she was like a spectator watching a movie. Pictures flashed quickly before her eyes, as if the quadruple speed key was pressed. Although the images flashed by quite quickly, they were enough for her to see every scene clearly. Some of these images were very familiar to her, but some of them made her feel very unfamiliar. They were not part of her memory. But the protagonists in the picture were very familiar to her. One was herself, and the other was her cousin who was only 4 months younger than her, and Mai. Although Yang was a little confused about the scenes that followed, it was not difficult to guess the answer based on the previous and subsequent scenes. If the first part of the dream represented her first half of life, then the strange scenes that flashed by in the back represented her experiences in the second half of her life. If one had to use one word to sum up the two lives, then the first half of her life must have been happy, while the second half can only be described as miserable. The whole scene in the dream was like a joke. The first half of life was so happy and fulfilling, while the second half was so miserable and helpless, forming a sharp contrast. The most ironic thing is that her short life is a control group, and her existence seems to be just to set off her cousin. The Yin family is native to Chengdu and their family background is average. Nearly 3 generations of the Yin family have been workers at pharmaceutical factory number 1. It can be said that Grandpa An has been working at the pharmaceutical factory since it was founded. Although the job is very ordinary and does not require much technical skills, the Yin family is considered a veteran employee family of the pharmaceutical factory. By the second generation, only Grandpa An took over this iron rice bowl. The reason was that he was the only male in this generation, and the other 3 were sisters. When they reached marriageable age, they were married off one after another. Mr. An and his wife had 2 sons. The eldest son, An Jerong, has performed very well since childhood. He is an upright and motivated person. He married Yang Ruhua, who was recruited from the countryside to work in the city. Yang Ruhua was one of the few girls with a junior high school diploma in those days. After all, in that era, people valued boys over girls and were reluctant to spend money on girls. It was definitely a rare thing for a girl to finish junior high school. The couple met at a pharmaceutical factory, fell in love with each other and had a naturally good relationship. Unfortunately, Yang Ruhua was injured while giving birth, so the couple only had one daughter, named Yang. It was because the old lady of the Yin family died early that there were not too many problems between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. In addition, Yang Ruhua had her own job and was independent and strong. She was not a woman who depended on her husband's family for life. Therefore, even if you don't give birth to a son, you can still gain a foothold in your husband's family. Chapter 6: Settling Down. The second son, An Jiarmin, was a bit mediocre compared to his outstanding eldest brother. Although he was smart, he never used his intelligence on real things. Therefore, there was a big difference between the two brothers in the eyes of their relatives and friends. And Jiamin dropped out of school in the first grade of junior high school. After being idle for a few years, he found a partner for himself. She was from a working-class family in Chengdu and her name was Cao Xiuzhen. The couple had a daughter and a son. But Cao's parents prefer their son. As a daughter, Cao Xiuzhen naturally has no qualifications to inherit her parents' iron rice bowl. So, the couple from the second house had been married for 2 years but had not found a proper job. In the end, Mr. An retired early, transferred his job to his younger son, and gave some money to his eldest son. Mr. An has always been fair in his dealings and he believes that he treats everyone equally, but the second wife and her husband do not think so. In their opinion, the eldest brother already has a job, so the old man's job should be given to the second wife. Why should he give additional subsidies to the first wife? From then on, the second wife felt resentful and thought that her parents were too partial to the eldest brother's family. But Mr. An was a clear-headed person. He didn't want the two brothers to have any unpleasantness, so after An Jiamin went to work at the pharmaceutical factory, he decisively separated the two brothers. After all, both sons have established their own families, and both daughters-in-law have their own little thoughts. If they continue to live together, friction is inevitable, which will hurt the friendship between the brothers. In his heart, Mr. An really values his eldest son more. After all, An Jiarong has always been very hardworking. Not only did he get a high school diploma, he also relied on his own abilities to be admitted to pharmaceutical factory number 1 and became an excellent drug inspector. This position is not like that of an ordinary workshop worker like Mr. An, who enjoys better salary and benefits. Which parent would not like an excellent and filial son? In addition, according to the traditional thinking of the older generation, the elderly always live with their eldest son, so naturally the weight in their hearts is different, but he has never treated his youngest son badly. However, Mr. An also noticed that the second son's wife was a picky and stubborn person. Because she had no job, she was always in a bad mood at home and always found fault with the eldest son's wife. Therefore, instead of the two brothers quarreling, it is better to separate them early while they still have some affection for each other, and each family can live their own life. As for how your life turns out, it depends on your own abilities and no one can blame anyone else. The eldest couple are both workers in a pharmaceutical factory. They receive double salary every month, so their quality of life is naturally excellent. In addition, the couple are both very hardworking and motivated. They perform very well in the pharmaceutical factory and have received a lot of welfare bonuses and other additional subsidies. Yang Ruhua is also a capable woman who knows how to manage the household and takes care of her family's lives in an orderly manner. The second wife and her husband were both lazy people, and the whole family depended on An Jiamin's salary. Cao Xiuzhen was lazy, so they lived a tight life. Especially after their youngest son was born, the family expenses became even greater. Sometimes they really couldn't make ends meet, and An Jiamin even had to ask his eldest brother's family for help. After Mr. An passed away, the gap between the two families became more obvious. The couple and the first wife got promotions and salary increases, and they managed the household well, so they were able to save money every year. The second wife and her husband have been mediocre, with no promotions and no savings, and have to rely on the eldest brother's family for support to get by. Later, a wave of layoffs came, the pharmaceutical factory was disbanded, and the family members were laid off, which widened the gap between the two families. Chapter 7 Control Group. The eldest wife and her husband started a medicinal materials business with their abilities and good connections. They bought a house in Chengdu. The second couple took the unemployment subsidy and messed around for a while, but in the end, they got nothing and the family had to squeeze into the old house. The children of the two families formed a sharp contrast. And Yang, the eldest daughter of the royal family, had a harmonious family and was loved by her parents. She had never suffered since childhood, had good food and good clothes, and grew up carefree. Anmei, the second daughter of the family, has unreliable parents. Not only has she had to do housework and take care of her younger brother since she was a child, but she also has to save money and worry about the family. If An Yang is a happy and carefree little princess, then An Mai is undoubtedly a poor and miserable little girl. Especially in comparison with An Yang, An Mai from the second house is made to look dull, inferior and insignificant. However, the turning point of the two families' lives came. When An Yang was in her second year of high school, and Jerome and his wife went to collect medicinal herbs on a tricycle, but they were suddenly hit by a heavy rainstorm. The wind was very strong that day, and because of the bad weather, the sky became darker in the evening, and the medicinal herbs on the tricycle accidentally fell to the ground. The couple was in a hurry to collect medicinal herbs and did not notice the large truck coming in the rain. As a result, they both died in the car accident. From then on, Yang and Anmai's lives seemed to be switched, and their life trajectories changed drastically. Anmai's family lives in harmony, however. Enyan becomes an orphan who lost both her parents. Anmai's old house received a large sum of demolition compensation, and Yang's large courtyard with a good location successfully avoided the demolition range every time, so that it has become a despised old house until now. Anmai opened a cosmetics store and lived a glamorous life, however, and Yang worked several part-time jobs to earn her living expenses. After returning from studying abroad, Anmai worked as a team leader in a famous cosmetics company, and Yang graduated from a third-tier university and joined a small to medium-sized pharmaceutical company, where she encountered the industry's unspoken rules. Relying on the makeup techniques she learned while studying abroad and taking advantage of the internet era, Anmai became a popular beauty anchor and gained both fame and fortune. However, Enyan encountered repeated setbacks and was constantly slandered and smeared, eventually becoming infamous in the pharmaceutical industry. Anmai married into a wealthy family with great fanfare, became a rich wife, and was sought after by everyone, but Yang died in a dilapidated yard due to a sudden illness and delayed rescue. After reviewing the scenes in the dream to this point, Yang's mouth twitched silently for several times. What is this? Predicting your future through dreams? That future would be ridiculous. For some reason, this dream vaguely gave her a sense of realization. She was a pathetic and stupid female supporting role who was trying to compete with Anmai, while Anmai was the heroine who enjoyed the fairy tale. She didn't know how other people were doing. In the dream, there was only a comparison between her life and Anmai's. The most ironic thing was that she had lived such a happy and fulfilling life in the past 10 years, as if it was just to set off Anmai's inspirational life. What kind of bullshit is this prophetic dream? She has always been a person of integrity. She would never tolerate or put herself in a difficult position, and she would never fawn on others. Even if she was forced into a desperate situation, she would drag the other person down with her and would do whatever it takes to get justice for herself. Chapter 8 Vision. Therefore, it is impossible for her to live such a miserable life, nor would she let herself fall into the situation where everyone can step on her. Is it possible that she cannot find other ways to survive in this world without the pharmaceutical circle? She would never be like herself in her dreams, cowardly and depressed. When Yang thought of the ending of her dream, she couldn't help but knock her head. I hit my head against the door. How could I have such a dream? Just then, the door of the ward was pushed open, and a female nurse walked in. Seeing Yang, who had woken up, she smiled with joy. You finally woke up. How do you feel? Are you feeling any discomfort? You have slept for more than 13 hours since you were sent to the hospital last night. I was just about to wake you up. What's wrong with me? Yang's thoughts were still immersed in the scenes flashing in her mind. When she heard the nurse's words, she was unable to react in time and asked subconsciously. The nurse asked gently, don't you remember what happened on Jinshi Road last night? Yang lowered her head slightly, rubbed her temples with both hands, discarded the dream fragments in her mind, and recalled them seriously. Construction Road. Yes, that's right, she seemed to have saved someone last night. After she finished her business at the drinking party, she was about to stroll along the streets and walk home, but something unexpected happened. The reason why she walked home was that she wanted to appreciate the scenery along the street, so she was always looking around, but she didn't expect to see an astonishing scene. There was a store less than 5 meters in front of her. The bright sign hanging on the second floor was shaking and was about to fall down, and there happened to be a female customer standing at the store door below. What was even more frightening was that Yang watched the sign fall off the wall with her own eyes. At that moment, she didn't care about anything else. After shouting, "Be careful," she pounced on it. But she remembered that at the moment when she pushed the woman forward, she heard the sound of the sign hitting behind her, which meant that they had successfully avoided the falling sign. So why was she in the hospital? Yang frowned slightly, and couldn't help but think carefully about what happened last night. It seemed that at the moment she fell to the ground, a cluster of dazzling golden light suddenly burst out before her eyes. I remember that I saved someone, and then I was blinded by a bright light, and then I lost consciousness. Nurse, is there something wrong with my body? He lost consciousness inexplicably, which reminded Yang of the scene at the end of the dream where he suddenly fell ill and then died tragically. Seeing that Yang's consciousness and reaction were very clear, the nurse smiled instantly. "Don't worry, you're fine." Then, the nurse patiently explained the doctor's diagnosis and instructions to Yang in detail. "Maybe you had an unexpected change last night and were overwhelmed with emotions, so you fainted. The doctor told you to have a good rest." However, at this moment, Yang had no idea what the nurse was talking about, and she stared at the nurse in shock. No, to be precise, she was looking at the space above the nurse's head. Yang was stunned and couldn't believe what she saw. Is this the after effect of her fall? Or is there something wrong with her eyes? She actually saw a three-dimensional peach heart the size of a palm above the nurse's head. This peach heart was light red in color and stood steadily above the nurse's head. This scene is unbelievable no matter how you look at it. Chapter 9. Is there something wrong with your eyes? Yang rubbed her eyes in disbelief, trying to see if she was dazzled. When she opened her eyes again, she saw that there was nothing on the nurse's head. Where was the light red heart? It turned out that she was dazzled and had hallucinations. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? The nurse saw Yang looking at her in a daze and asked in confusion. No, I just. Yang was about to respond to the nurse, but she saw a light red heart appear on the nurse's head again. It was exactly the same as what she had just seen. Yang was startled immediately, her mouth slightly open, her heart pounding. What's going on? Is she dazzled? Yang really wanted to ask the nurse, but she was worried that only her eyes could see the abnormality. If she rashly said it out loud, she would probably be locked up as a psychopath, right? The nurse saw that Yang suddenly stopped and her eyes were still staring at her motionlessly. The look in her eyes was very strange, as if there was something dirty on her body, which made her feel a little uneasy. Yang? Are you okay? Do you need me to call a doctor for you? Hearing this, Yang regained her composure instantly and said quickly, No, nurse, I feel fine now and don't feel any discomfort. I just suddenly thought of what happened last night. Can I be discharged from the hospital now? She was feeling a little flustered now, and had no idea what was happening to her. Although she wanted to figure it out, now was obviously not the time to delve into it. The hospital is a place with many people and eyes. If other people find out that something is wrong, which she herself hasn't figured out, the problem will only become more serious. Therefore, the most important thing right now is to leave the hospital first and then study it slowly after returning home. If there is no problem, you can be discharged from the hospital. The nurse replied with a smile. There was nothing wrong with Yang's body, she just fainted due to the sudden shock, so she was placed in a temporary bed in the emergency room, so she didn't even have to go through the discharge procedures. A few minutes later, Yang walked out of the emergency building and was completely dumbfounded. What is going on? The emergency building is full of people coming in and out, which is a very common phenomenon in hospitals, but the question is, why does everyone have a heart on their head? At first glance, what she saw was not the passers-by, but the dazzling peach hearts. Her eyes could not see anything else at all, and she only saw the peach hearts swaying in front of her eyes. The reason why it is so conspicuous is that the color of the peach heart on each person's head is different. At present, she has seen 3 colors, red, gray and black, but the depth of each color is different. Among them, gray and light red peach hearts are the most common, with a few light black ones mixed in. Yang was confused, and the doubts in her heart grew. How come the world becomes so mysterious when I wake up? What are the hearts popping up on these people's heads? Yang stood blankly at the door of the emergency building, watching peach hearts swaying back and forth in front of her eyes. She found that everyone's expressions were normal, and it seemed that they could not see their hearts on other people's heads at all. This discovery made her feel a lot more at ease. So, Yang became bolder and she wanted to find out what was going on with these peach hearts. This thought actually made her realize a problem. She discovered that the peach heart on her head could actually be controlled by her own thoughts. Chapter 10. Beauty System. For example, if she doesn't want to see those peach hearts, as long as she has this thought in her mind, those peach hearts will disappear. Conversely, if she wants to see the peach hearts on everyone's head, she only needs to stare at the other person for more than 3 seconds, and the peach hearts on the other person's head will appear. It's amazing, Tilda, and Yang couldn't help but exclaim in praise. This discovery further confirmed her guess, that is, only she could see this strange phenomenon, so the peach heart would change according to her thoughts. So what do these different colored hearts represent? And Yang couldn't help but frown and think. She always believed that the appearance of everything had a reason and it was impossible for it to suddenly exist for no reason. As for the peach hearts that appear on everyone's head, they must have a meaning. Just as another passerby passed by Yang, she couldn't help but raise her hand and quickly touch the light red heart on the other person's head. Ding! The most beautiful genes have been detected. The beauty system is binding. Entering the 10-second countdown, 10, 9. Suddenly, a mechanical voice sounded in Yang's ears, startling her so much that she looked around subconsciously. What is this broadcast about? Huh? Why did everyone's expression remain unchanged, and they didn't even stop walking? It was as if they didn't hear the strange sound playing in the air at all. Can't these people hear it? But the countdown is still going on. Under normal circumstances, when people suddenly hear an unexpected sound, some people will subconsciously become curious or look around, but now no one reacts, which is obviously a bit abnormal. Is it possible that she is the only one who can hear it? This prompt sound doesn't sound like a traditional broadcast, nor does it sound like the sound made by other electronic products, not to mention that the content is a bit strange. The most beautiful genes. Beauty systems. What are they? Ding! The beauty system has been successfully bound. Congratulations to their host for starting a life of truth, kindness and beauty. Please claim the novice benefits as soon as possible. Tilde. And Yang's pupils trembled slightly, and her face was full of surprise. Even though she considered herself to be a relatively calm person, it was difficult for her to remain calm after experiencing such strange things one after another. Fortunately, she was just startled and didn't do anything panicky. At this moment, she was very sure that the mechanical sound she had just heard was not coming from the outside world, but was the sound coming from her mind. Realizing this, Yang couldn't help but clench her hands. Then she reacted and looked around. Seeing that no one noticed her abnormality, she secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't dare to stay any longer, so she quickly ran out of the hospital gate and generously hailed a taxi to go straight home. More than 10 minutes later, Yang got out of the taxi and hurried into an alley. The entire alley is a bit shabby, and even the houses on both sides exude an air of age. Walking in the alley feels like being in a residential alley from the 1990s. Yang has lived in this alley for more than 10 years. The residents here are all old neighbors who have known each other for many years. Everyone comes in and out every day, and when they meet, they will greet each other and chat for a few words. The neighborhood relationship is very harmonious. But she had no intention of greeting her neighbors now, and went straight to the old courtyard at the deepest part of the alley. It was not until Yang sat on the wooden sofa at home that she completely relaxed and even let out a long breath. Chapter 11 Host. After experiencing such a magical thing, it's no wonder that Yang acted a little out of control before. After all, she had received scientific education for the past 20 years. She didn't expect that after fainting for no reason, she would experience such bizarre things one after another. If it was just a temporary abnormality, it could be said to be an accident or coincidence, but this abnormality happened to her several times in a row, and Yang could no longer deceive herself. In the past 20 years, she has never seen or heard anything beyond the scope of scientific common sense. She only respects some superstitions but has never believed in them. But now, the ideas she had accepted for 23 years were broken, and she had to accept a cognition. There might really be some things in this world that cannot be explained by scientific knowledge. System. Yang tried to call out in a low voice. The taxi ride home was enough for her to calm down and sort out all her thoughts and events. Although Yang is not a very smart person, she is good at capturing some details and key points. Combined with the voice in her head, she can make some guesses. Beauty system. Binding? Host? If she is their host, it means that there is something claiming to be a beautification system bound to her and exists in her brain. Yang didn't really like reading miscellaneous books, and had never read books like novels. But after entering university, she would occasionally hear classmates and roommates mention some fantasy novels. The world is so big that there are all kinds of wonders. Not everything can be explained by scientific common sense. So, why can't the magical powers in novels happen in real life? In fact, it is not difficult to understand literally. It is the same principle as installing system software on a computer, except that her body has become a carrier and the main program of something is installed, and this system setting is related to beautification. Hello, host, Beauty System 308 is at your service. After getting a response, Yang suppressed her excitement. It seemed that her guess was correct, so she began to understand and explore the system in her mind in detail. First of all, how did this system come about? It comes from a higher plane with more advanced technological civilization. The people on this planet highly value beauty and peace. They believe that beauty can purify all the bad things in the world. If everyone sees beautiful things and has a beautiful heart, then the world will be full of beauty and peace. Of course, the beauty they pursue is not just the beauty that appears on the surface, but also the purity and cleanliness of the mind and soul. Therefore, they pursue and love all qualities that possess truth, goodness, and beauty. Moreover, they not only love beauty, but also are very happy to share their beauty. For this purpose, they created the beauty system in order to convey beauty and peace to more civilized planets. So, this beautification system came to the Earth, trying to find a host with both internal and external beauty. What is clever is that the system just captured the scene of her saving people at the moment she fell to the earth. This kind act, coupled with her outstanding appearance, is very consistent with the planet's standards of truth, goodness, and beauty. Therefore, the system chose her without a doubt. They are bound together in a relationship of friendship, mutual assistance, and mutual complementation. Chapter 12 Function. In a word, the system wants to pass on beauty to more people through itself, that is, to help everyone become beautiful and make the world more beautiful and harmonious. And she can also obtain corresponding rewards by completing the system's tasks. Needless to say, the rewards awarded by the system are definitely not ordinary things, but must be things that are of great benefit to her. The system has two side tasks. One is to make and sell corresponding beauty products according to the tasks issued by the system. As long as she completes the specified sales volume, she will get a new beauty recipe. The other is a hidden task. The system will give her corresponding reputation achievement rewards based on the audience influence of the beauty product, and this reward is specially customized for the host's body. In other words, the more people buy and use the beauty products she makes, the more beauty recipes she can learn and the corresponding reputation achievement rewards she can receive. The former can allow her to earn more fame and fortune, while the latter can allow her to have a better physique. This way, it will be completely beneficial to her with no harm at all. This reward for fame achievement is so great. And Yang was overjoyed. How much money you can make is secondary. The most important thing is to have a healthy body. Otherwise, no matter how much money you make, you won't have the life to enjoy it. How frustrating that would be. Whenever she thought of the scene in her dream where she died young due to a sudden illness, she felt terrified. She didn't want to die early, so in order to live longer, she had to work hard to get the rewards for fame achievements. Secondly, what is the function of this system? This magical beautification system is divided into 3 sections, plus 2 additional functions. At this moment, a transparent panel was displayed in front of Yang. The 3 columns at the bottom of the page were labeled Material Warehouse, Operation Room, and Storage Room. Every recipe given by the beauty system uses raw materials that come with the system, and these raw materials are basically medicinal materials, some precious and some ordinary. Of course, the raw materials for the recipe can also be found outside, but the finished product will not be as good as the medicinal materials in the material library. Within the product quota specified in the task, raw materials are free to use. If they exceed the free quota, you need to use points to purchase them in the material library, and you can only purchase the formulated medicinal materials given by the system. This material library has another very surprising function. It even comes with its own purchase invoice, which gives Yang a lot of room for operation. It not only provides a source of goods, but also ensures the safety of the raw materials. As for the operation room, as the name suggests, it is the place used to make beauty products. This is a 3-dimensional space opened up by the system, and it contains all the equipment and tools. However, although the equipment in the operation room is somewhat unique, it is not like the assembly line in a factory that can produce thousands of products at a time. Looking at this introduction, Yang feels that the beauty products produced by the system should be more natural and handmade, so a lot of mechanized production is skipped. She actually agrees with this point. No matter how convenient mechanized production is, it cannot replace the benefits of pure handmade work. But what surprised her most was that this operating room was equipped with automatic cleaning and sterilization functions, and the beauty products made in this sterile operating room had an enhanced effect. The effect of this blessing seems a bit mysterious to Yang. It actually has a purifying effect on the users of the product, that is, it can help the users of the product to eliminate distracting thoughts and calm their emotions. TSK tilde. The power of the system has made Yang a little numb, so she decided to continue reading. Chapter 13 Control Group. The last section of the system is the storage room. As the name suggests, it is the place where the raw materials of the formula are stored. It is equivalent to a portable space with infinite capacity. And Yang tried it and found that this storage room can also store things from the outside world, except living things. Next, there are two additional features that come with this system. And Yang had already fully witnessed the first function, which was the strange vision she had seen with her eyes before. It turns out that the peach heart displayed on each person's head is the embodiment of each person's truth, goodness and beauty, and people on the planet judge a person's beauty based on the different colors of the peach heart. There are 5 colors of hearts. The big red heart represents a sincere and kind person. Such people are very pure and beautiful in body and mind and are trustworthy. The light red heart represents a kind person who does good deeds within his/her ability in daily life and is worth making friends with. The snow white heart represents mediocre people who are indifferent to everything in life, have no merits or sins, and just need to maintain ordinary relationships. Gray represents selfish people who act at the expense of others for their own benefit and need to be kept at a distance. A person with a deep black heart has committed many evil things and has done many immoral things. You should definitely stay away from them. This function is great. It's like a good and evil detector. And Yang's mouth corners were raised high, and she was in a very good mood. With this function, she could easily distinguish whether a person was good or bad, and no longer had to worry about being deceived. Another additional function is the ability to monitor and check the status of all product users. Users may lie with their words, but the system data cannot. Although this additional function doesn't have much use, it's better than nothing. Tilde. After understanding all the functions of the system, Yang took a deep breath and finally felt relaxed from the inside out. Ever since she woke up, a series of mishaps have kept her in a state of tension. Her mood changed from initial fear to shock, to excitement, and then to numbness to her current calmness. The psychological changes along the way are like going through a lifetime. 308, were the images I saw while I was unconscious real? And Yang is still bothered by her tragic death in the dream. Since even such a magical thing as the system can happen, then predicting the future in a dream is not something difficult to accept. It's true. To be precise, that was not your dream. It should be that when the system entered your body, the energy fluctuation was too large, which awakened your consciousness of part of the small world. And Yang was puzzled. Small world consciousness. You can understand it this way. The story between you and Mai forms a small world. And Mai is the heroine and you are the supporting actress. This small world revolves around you two, so you two form a control group relationship. And Yang frowned slightly and roughly understood what the system meant. Everyone may be the protagonist of a small world, but in their small world, they do not have the fate halo of the heroine, and thus become Mai's life control group. So, the scenes in her dream were all real. Host, don't worry. The moment you bind to this system, your life trajectory has changed. The changes between you will not affect the framework of this big world. Really? And Yang's face instantly brightened up. Even though she knew that she would not commit suicide to the extent of her dream, she could not resist the aura of Mai, the heroine. Moreover, Mai had always been competing with her since she was a child and had a lot of malice towards her. Chapter 14 Current Situation. In fact, without the blessing of the heroine's halo, within Mai's personality, she would also deliberately find fault. Therefore, she, the female supporting character in the control group, was completely wrongly killed and was passively used as a foil to Mai. Fortunately, she is now bound to the system and is not so anxious about the future. Now that she had figured out what was going on, Yang felt more confident about her future life, and even had great confidence in fighting against the fate of the original control group. Yang also knew that her behavior last night might have been too impulsive. As a worker in society, she should have the attitude and awareness of a worker. In fact, there are many ways to avoid being taken advantage of, but she chose the most resolute way. With a temperament and attitude like hers, it is probably difficult for her to be liked by her leaders and colleagues. In their eyes, she may just be a useless person who does not understand the ways of the world. Such a scheming workplace life might not be suitable for her. She actually likes a simple and plain life. But real life does not allow this. In order to support herself and live a better life, she can only struggle and run for life tirelessly and fearlessly. Her behavior last night completely angered the company's leadership. Without thinking, she knew that the outcome that awaited her was definitely dismissal. The company only pays the previous month's salary on the 15th of the next month, and it is still the beginning of the month, so she has given up hope of getting a bonus. It would be great if she can just get the basic salary. And Yang checked her current balance. There was 500 yuan in her bank card, 279.68 in her WeChat wallet, and 212 yuan in cash. This was all the money she had now. Fortunately, the woman she saved last night paid the medical bills, otherwise she would be short of money. There is no way. She is still in the internship period and her salary is only 1,500 yuan. With some subsidies and bonuses, it can barely reach about 2,000 yuan. In the car accident 4 years ago, the truck driver was not primarily responsible, but out of humanitarian concern, the transportation company still gave her 50,000 yuan in compensation. You have to know that in 2011, 50,000 yuan was quite a lot of money. After all, the average monthly salary was only more than 2,000 yuan, and being able to save 20,000 or 30,000 yuan a year was considered quite impressive. However, the prices of goods are getting higher every year. Most of the money my parents earned before they died was used to buy this yard, and the rest was invested in the medicinal materials business. Therefore, after their sudden death, they did not leave much money. However, how could 50,000 yuan be enough to cover her tuition for high school and 3 years of college, as well as her daily living expenses? If she hadn't relied on part-time jobs, she wouldn't have been able to graduate from college. Even if she had a younger uncle who was a small boss, so what? That family was truly ungrateful. When she was richer, her parents had helped their family countless times. But after her parents passed away, they pretended to be good and said nice things, but they did not show any real interest and never gave her a single cabbage. However, her grandmother and uncle who lived in the town would send her some vegetables and food from time to time, but she was too embarrassed to accept more. After all, their lives were not very good either. Thank you, 308. Thinking of her current situation, Yang couldn't help but feel grateful. If there is no binding system, her life will definitely be difficult. Now that she is connected to the system, she at least has a very secure way out. She can breathe a sigh of relief and no longer have to rush around and worry about her life. Chapter 15 Mission 1. You're welcome, host. Hurry up and claim the newbie benefits. After hearing 308's reminder, Yang remembered that the system had indeed given a novice benefit before. As soon as she thought about it, the system panel appeared in front of Yang, and a gift package pattern appeared in the middle of the page. She immediately reached out and clicked it. Newbie benefits have been successfully received. Congratulations to their host for obtaining the secret recipe of ancient rose ointment. Ancient rose ointment. Yang murmured subconsciously. Just as she was puzzled, she saw the corresponding introduction and production steps appear on the panel. Ancient rose ointment, it is rich in nutrients, moisturizes the skin, nourishes the face, and resists aging. It can be used for bathing, cleansing the face, and washing hands. After use, it can keep the skin hydrated and fragrant for a long time. Judging from this introduction, it seems not much different from some moisturizing products on the market. Then Yang looked at the production steps carefully. Although most of them were made by hand, the operation was not difficult and the steps were simple. She discovered that the formula also contained Chinese medicinal materials. The existence of the system was already magical. She believed that the secret recipe it provided must have its own unique features. As a result, Yang became more confident. Ding! Task 1, please sell 100 ancient rose ointments within 15 days. Yang was stunned by the sudden task before she reacted. 115 days. Are you sure? What happens if you fail to complete the task? Host, rest assured. We are peace-loving people on this planet. There will be no harmful punishment. If the host fails to complete the task within the specified time, there will be no new beauty formula. Yang was suddenly speechless, and secretly at a loss for words. This answer was as good as saying nothing. It is true that the system will not punish her, but for her, this so-called non-punishment is equivalent to a punishment. Xian and Mai were in the same control group, and the other party still had the aura of the heroine. If her fate was not stronger than hers, she would still end up like in the dream. She wanted a healthy body and wanted to change the tragic fate of her control group, so now she could only rely on the system to complete tasks in order to gain shelter and the opportunity for change. If she fails in the first mission, how can she continue to complete the mission? Okay, I got it. And Yang clenched her fists and encouraged herself secretly, then agreed with a determined look on her face. Now she had no choice but to rush forward with all her might. Her future career was determined the moment she was connected to the beauty system. She is a student majoring in pharmacy and has pretty good professional knowledge. In addition, influenced by her family since childhood, she has a strong interest in medicinal materials and pharmaceutical manufacturing. Moreover, their family also has a special pharmacy with several medicine cabinets containing all the basic medicinal materials. Some of them are still collected, and she will tinker with those herbs in her free time. Therefore, the tasks assigned by the system were not difficult for her. On the contrary, they were very much in line with her wishes. And Yang has made up her mind. She won't look for a job anymore. She wants to start her own business. With this powerful weapon, the system, in hand, why should she force herself to go through their ups and downs in the workplace? Now that she has better options, she will of course choose to take the smoother path. The system is introduced very clearly. Within the quota specified in the task, the raw materials of the products are provided free of charge by the system. Even if the raw materials need to be purchased from the material warehouse later, the points spent are converted from sales. Chapter 16 Choice. As long as the beauty products continue to be sold, she will have a steady supply of points, and there will be no shortage of raw materials. What's more, the system also has its own sterile operating room, with both equipment and space. In other words, the cost of producing beauty products is borne by the system, and she does not have to spend a penny, but can still get all the benefits, and even get extra rewards from the system. This is even more amazing than getting something for nothing. If she wants to work in the beauty industry, she doesn't even have to bear the risks of starting a business. She just needs to make products boldly and then sell them without worrying about anything. Therefore, opening a handmade beauty workshop is perfect for me now that I'm in a difficult situation. Of course, and Yang had this idea not only because of the system, but also partly because of her awakened consciousness. Although the dream did not present a coherent story, the flashing images were enough for her to grasp some key information about the future. Now it is 2015. In the dream, she died of a sudden illness in 2018. However, the picture did not stop there. Several clips flashed after that until Anmei's most glorious moment, the picture ended completely. The time shown in the last dream is 2022, which is 7 years later. In the years after her death, Anmei seemed to have been blessed with luck and reached the pinnacle of her life. Not only did she achieve success in her career and family, but her fame also spread across the entire internet. She was truly a winner in life that every woman envied. She was not very clear about other aspects of future development, but the scenes surrounding Anmei in her dream left a deep impression on her. The next 7 years will be the heyday of the internet, and it will create countless internet celebrities, or Wanghong for short. And Anmei is one of them, and she is even one of the first beauty influencers to reap the benefits, because the dream mainly revolves around Anmei, and it is also thanks to her that Yang was able to roughly see the development process of the internet celebrity era. It is now 2015. According to the development history of the internet, we are now in the era of 2 micros, that is, the period of the rise of Weibo and WeChat. In the following years, various live broadcasts and short videos took off and bombarded the entire online world. Among them, live streaming and e-commerce fully reaped the benefits brought by the internet and made a lot of money. Frankly speaking, Yang felt jealous and envious. She didn't envy Anmei for becoming a big internet celebrity, but she envied those people who won easily by taking advantage of the internet age. Therefore, she is ready to seize the opportunities of the times and take advantage of the momentum of being an internet celebrity to create her own wealth in life. Ding tilde. Just as Yang was imagining a bright future, the text message alert on her cell phone suddenly rang. Yang quickly took out her cell phone from her bag and checked it. The message was from a colleague in the company with whom she had a good relationship, mainly reminding her to be careful. As soon as she got to work this morning, how you complained to her superiors. She knew without asking that it was not good, but she had expected this result. Although she was not from Hao Yu's department, she had heard about his style of doing things. Hao Yu was a sales talent specially poached from other companies by the company's leaders. A large part of the company's sales performance is linked to him, so he is highly valued by the leadership, but as internal employees, most of them are very clear about how Hao Yu's performance was negotiated. But leaders don't care about the negotiation process, they only look at the final results. Chapter 17 Taikang Pharmaceutical. She herself was just an ordinary drug tester and an intern who had only worked for more than 3 months. Therefore, even if she was right, the company's top management would not give up talent for her. She still had some self-awareness, so she didn't plan to reason with those people. Since the situation had already broken out, she might as well just confront them. A hint of coldness appeared at the corner of Yang's mouth. She put away her phone and went into the kitchen, where she made herself a big bowl of egg noodles. She hadn't eaten since last night, and she still had a battle to fight in the afternoon. How could she have the strength to fight if she didn't have a full stomach? At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Enyan walked into Taikang Pharmaceutical with her head held high. Hey! Look who's here! Zhang Jisun noticed Yang's figure with sharp eyes and immediately started shouting with glee. After letting Yang run away last night, she was scolded by Manager Hao. The scene was so chaotic and she was not prepared. Who knew Yang would go crazy? What embarrassed her most was that she offered to accompany Mr. Chen instead of Yang, but was directly rejected by Manager Hao. It's really infuriating. Why? She was obviously from the sales and public relations department, and it was her job to do this kind of accompanying work, but Manager Hao skipped her and found Yang from the testing department. Just because of Yang's face. She just couldn't understand. Apart from her pretty face, what else was good about Yang? She was old-fashioned and boring, with a dull face all day long and a stiff voice when she spoke. How could she be feminine at all? Looking at Yang's face, Zhang Jisun was filled with anger. Such a good opportunity was missed again last night. How dare you come to the company? You did a good thing, but it caused trouble for everyone. How can you be so ashamed? Yang's expression was indifferent. You are so embarrassed to take the initiative to pay for me, why should I be embarrassed? You. Zhang Jisun was touched in an awkward spot and her face turned red with anger, but when she thought about the company's decision, she felt a lot better instantly. Humph, you are just being stubborn. If you offend Mr. Chen, you will suffer the consequences. Don't worry about it. She's prettier than you anyway. Yang glanced at the other person with a frivolous look and then passed her by. This Zhang Jisun has always disliked me since college, and whenever she speaks to me, she is either sarcastic or weird. I didn't expect to be assigned to the same unit for internship. What a narrow road for enemies. As for the little tricks she did behind her back and the ambiguous words she said to other colleagues, did she really think she didn't know? It's just that she didn't want to cause a scene at work. Secondly, her mind was on work and making money, and she didn't want to bother with the other person. Their mouth is on someone else's body, and she can't guard it all the time. As long as it doesn't happen in front of her, she generally doesn't want to bother with it. After all, the mouth is on someone else's body, and she can't monitor it all the time. What's more, this is not the only criticism she has heard over the years. If she really cared about everything, she would have been angry to death long ago. Zhang Jia was so angry that she could only glare at Yang's back. This person was as annoying as ever. Humph, she's just pretending to be noble. She's waiting to see how long she can be so arrogant. Yang ignored the gazes from both sides and went straight into the minister's office, decisively handing in her resignation letter. Chapter 18 Crime. Xiaowen, I have accepted your resignation letter, but I am afraid the company will not be able to pay you your salary and bonus for last month. The director of the testing department looked embarrassed and felt very ashamed. It was not his intention to make things difficult for a young girl in this way. After all, Yang did her job conscientiously last month. There is no reason to deduct her salary. This behavior is too overbearing and unreasonable. But this was an order from above, and as a subordinate he had no choice but to obey it. Among the several departments in the company, Hao Yu from the sales and public relations department was the most arrogant. Hao Yu's idea. Yang was not surprised to hear this. She knew her minister's character well, so she did not argue too much and just asked for a definite answer. The minister was hesitant and didn't know how to answer for a moment. At this moment, a very arrogant voice suddenly sounded, "So what if it's my idea? If you have the ability to do it, then you must be prepared to bear the consequences." Hao Yu walked into the office with a swagger, looking at Yang with a very smug look. "If you can take the initiative to come and apologize today, then I can help you plead for mercy, and let what happened last night be over. How about that?" If Mr. Chen hadn't been obsessed with Yang, would he have to go to so much trouble? When he thought of what Yang did last night, he was furious. The more he saw her sacred and inviolable look, the more he wanted to break her spine. Hearing the deep meaning behind the words, Yang's mouth showed a hint of coldness. Not very good. Anything that Yang was involved in was definitely some shameful business. Her attitude last night showed it so clearly, and this person actually wanted to drag her into it. He won't cry until he sees the coffin. The dark life she experienced in her dream started from here, until she fell to the bottom. In the dream, she also ruined Yu's good deeds, but she did not encounter any accidents on her way home. On the next morning, she still went to the company to resign. However, the company withheld her salary and bonus on the grounds that she had violated the company's rules and regulations. She was definitely not happy about this and started making a scene in the company. Later, Yu produced a document and accused her of leaking company secrets and demanded that she pay liquidated damages. She didn't know how the document was obtained, but because she was a drug tester, her job did involve handling some drugs and she would sign her name on the test form. She was completely confused in the dream, caught off guard. Moreover, she was outnumbered and could not compete with Yang at all. Even if she called the police, she would not be able to clear herself of the charges due to insufficient evidence. Since then, she has encountered obstacles everywhere and cannot find a suitable job. In addition to the fact that someone is smearing her reputation everywhere, this is also the label attached to her. Now that the trajectory of fate has changed, she will never give them the opportunity to accuse them of anything. And Yang, what do you mean? I'm telling you, don't refuse a toast. I'll give you one last chance, think it over carefully. Yu was extremely dissatisfied. It had been a long time since anyone had embarrassed him like this. Since he entered the society, he had seen countless women of all kinds. Chapter 19, Counterattack. He had seen many arrogant women before, but in the end they all succumbed to the temptation of money. Nowadays, there is no one who doesn't love money. Some women pretend to be cold in front of others, but when it comes to money and interests, they are more open-minded than each other. Therefore, no matter how hard one is, they will bend for the sake of money. As for Yang, he didn't take her seriously at all. She was just a poor orphan with no family background. He had seen many women like her. Even if she was really dignified and noble, so what? He had plenty of ways to make her obedient. And Yang's eye swept over the document in Yang's hand. Is this the document that had harmed her in her dream? It seems that everything that happened in the dream was real. Has she really awakened her consciousness of the future? You will know whether it is true or not by trying it. Don't worry about it. I've already submitted my resignation letter. I can't afford to work for a company that makes money by relying on the beauty of its female employees. Seeing that the other party was stubborn, Yu completely lost his patience and stared at Yang with a sullen face. Very good. This is your own choice, so don't blame the company for being ruthless. As he said that, Yu slammed the document in his hand on the table. Take a closer look. Is this document signed by you? Today we learned that someone leaked the company's newly developed raw material number 2 to other people, and the person who participated in the number 2 drug test was you. We have checked the rest of the people, and you are the only one responsible for checking the raw materials. There is also your signature on it when you tested it, so according to the requirements of the contract, you must compensate the company for the losses with 3 times the amount. The minister at the side was stunned. He really didn't expect Yu to do such a thing. It was too despicable and shameless. Isn't drug number 2 a test product? Moreover, it was decided to eliminate drug number 2 at the meeting a few days ago, so where did the claim of the company's latest drug come from? However, the company did not fully disclose this decision to its employees, and only management staff knew about it. But it's not right to cheat people like this. And Yang smiled coldly, it was indeed so. She didn't want to waste any more time talking, so she took out her cell phone and operated it for a few times. Then a familiar voice came from the phone. Isn't it just drinking and dancing with Mr. Chen? Just hugging your waist is like asking for your life, what's the big deal? What era is this? Who are you trying to show off to by pretending to be a chaste heroine? I tell you, this order from Mr. Chen is very important to the company. No matter what he does tonight, he must sign it. When the recording came out, Yu and the minister in the office were both surprised, but the former was angry. He didn't expect Yang to dare to record their conversation. The director was completely shocked by Yu's shameless face. Did he force female employees like this in private? He finally saw it today. And Yang shook her phone and asked innocently, "Manager, how, do you want to hear more? You are despicable. How dare you record our conversation? Did you do it on purpose?" Thinking of the other party's intention, How Yu was so furious. Hearing this, and Yang's lips curled up slightly. "Compared to your forcing a woman of good character into prostitution, I can't be called despicable. It doesn't matter if you don't want to hear it. I can play the scene for you. Do you want to watch it?" Chapter 20, Get Ahead. Before coming to the company, Yang went to a high-end club last night and obtained the video from the monitoring room in the name of the company. In the dream, he was caught off guard by a series of operations. When she reacted and wanted to find evidence, the surveillance video was already obtained by Hao Yu. She was unable to prove the persecution she had suffered in the company and was forced to allow them to throw dirty water on her, including taking away the so-called confidential documents. It was only after a long time that she found out all the truth. But the best time had been missed, and she has been carrying the stigma ever since. Now that she has awakened and knows some of the future trends in advance, she will naturally not allow them to throw dirty water on her. She will take the initiative while they are still not aware of the seriousness of the problem. "You want to threaten me with this? You think the company will fire me because of this? How naive. You leaked company secrets, which is a criminal act, don't you understand?" How Yu looked at Yang sinisterly. Now he finally understood that this damn girl had obtained the surveillance video of the club. But he remembered that the place where they talked last night was just an angle away, so he felt confident in teaching him a lesson. Little did he know that there was surveillance at such an angle. He was careless. And Yang's expression did not change, and she sneered, "Who said I would take this video to the company's leaders? I don't even want this job, so why would I care about some insignificant people? Since you can fake it, why can't I uphold justice? I plan to upload this video to the internet or send it to some media reporters, with the title, 'A certain manager of Taikang Pharmaceutical forced female employees to have unspoken rules.' Is this a distortion of the industry or a loss of human nature? Manager Hao, what do you think of this title?" She learned this trick of online public opinion in her dream. Although it is not yet the heyday of the internet, some online media have emerged. In her dream, she also saw Enma using online public opinion to defeat many competitors, and even relying on manipulating online public opinion to achieve her own interests. It can be seen that if the network is used well, it will undoubtedly become an invisible executioner. How about going to fuck a horse? Hao Yu's eyes were full of anger. He actually underestimated this damn girl. Is she still a woman? When women encounter such things, shouldn't they hide it and be afraid of being exposed? After all, speaking out about such things will have some impact on a woman's reputation. She doesn't care at all. But then I thought that this woman is a tough one. Maybe she is really not afraid of making a big fuss. But if she really posts it online, won't it damage the company's image and reputation? Taikang Pharmaceutical is indeed a well-known company in Chengdu, but it is not a leading company. Internet media is so extensive that they really do not have the ability to control the entire network. Hao Yang was anxious and angry. He never expected Yang to do this. He thought that charging her with leaking secrets would be enough to keep her in line. Now, instead of taking care of the person, I was outmaneuvered by the other party. What do you want? Don't forget that you have also damaged the interests of the company. Hao Yu was at a loss for a moment and could only dwell on the matter. He was completely annoyed with Yang. Har. It's just an abandoned test product, and you have the nerve to say it's the company's latest research and development. If this news spreads to other peers, Taikang Pharmaceutical will probably become a joke. And Yang sneered, her face calm and composed, giving people the feeling that she was sure of victory. Who told you that? Seeing that his trump card was directly exposed by the opponent, Hao Yu's eyes were bloodshot and he felt terrible. Chapter 21, Falling. Hao Yu immediately turned his fierce gaze to the minister beside him, his face full of suspicion. Did you tell her? The minister was still confused and could only shake his head subconsciously. How could he dare to shout about something that the company hadn't even made public? And Yang didn't want to implicate the minister, so she said, "No one needs to tell me about this. I am a member of the testing department who is involved in drug testing. Do you think I don't know whether a product is qualified or not? Don't forget, I'm more professional than you in this area. I made separate record backups for each drug test. Don't think you can easily accuse me of a crime." Also, the suppliers of medicinal materials have also stopped supplying the goods, right? There is a lot of evidence to be found in this matter. If I hadn't laid it all out in front of you, it would be fake. Even if it was forged, there would be countless clues left behind. Hao Yu's face looked extremely ugly. He never expected that one day, Hao Yu, would fall down. Seeing this, Yang's mood became cheerful, and the feeling of frustration and depression that the dream brought her was finally relieved. Manager Hao, you are a smart man. We don't need to beat around the bush. I am a person who will not offend others unless they offend me. I have no other requests now, and I don't want to make the situation too embarrassing. The company only needs to pay me the salary and bonus I deserve, and let us forget about what happened before. We have nothing to do with each other from now on, how about that? This result was the most appropriate solution she could think of. It was not because she was timid and fearful, but because she was now helpless and did not have the ability to compete with a large company like Taikang Pharmaceutical. She has always been a rational and pragmatic person, and will not bring trouble to her future life just for the sake of momentary pleasure. Secondly, Hao Yu was a black-hearted person, and she didn't want to push him too hard. If he did something behind her back, she would be the only one who would suffer. She also knew that with Hao Yu's personality, he would not let her go so easily and would definitely cause trouble for her in the future, but she could only talk about the future later. What she wants is a short period of peace so that she can have the buffer period to strengthen herself. When she grows up, she will naturally not have to be so timid. And Yang, I really underestimated you. Hao Yu's face was terribly gloomy at this moment, but he was helpless now. Compared with his own calculations, the company's reputation and image were definitely more important. He didn't want to bring the matter to the attention of his superiors, as that would only make their bosses think that he was incompetent. And Yang raised her lips and smiled, thank you. More than 10 minutes later, Yang successfully received 2,300 yuan, which was the total amount of her basic salary last month plus the bonus assessment. She would not take a penny more. She deleted the video on her phone very neatly in front of Hao Yang. As for whether there was a backup, she would never admit it. After resolving the company's issues, Yang felt a lot more relaxed. At this moment, she even felt that the sky was bluer, the air was fresher, and even the sound of car horns sounded more pleasant. Now, the turning point of her destiny has changed, and she will definitely live a long and healthy life in the future. Come on, Yang. Yang encouraged herself and returned home full of confidence. Although she no longer has to rush around for work, she can't just relax. So, she has to quickly set up the workshop and start her own beauty business. Chapter 22 Hibiscus Street. The old street where Yang lives has a nice name, Furong Street. The origin of the name is very simple. There are 2 rows of hibiscus trees planted on both sides of this old street, about 3 or 4 meters high. From August to October every year, the street will turn into a dreamy pink all day long. Logically speaking, such a beautiful street should receive some attention, but unfortunately, this is an old street and the houses on both sides are still in the style of 2-story tiled houses, which are very old. Secondly, the total length of this street is only about 400 meters, and most of the 2-story houses on both sides use the first floor as storefront and the second floor for living. This street is basically inhabited by old residents who have settled here since the houses were built in the 1990s. The houses on this street have a construction history of more than 10 years, so this old street is not very popular. In addition, the light is a little dim due to the trees on both sides. During the day, the whole street is deserted and there are almost no people around, which gives the whole street a sense of tranquility. Because the street is old, the store business has not been very good in recent years. They have closed down and changed hands several times. The big stores can no longer do business, but the small stores are still doing well. Nowadays, the small shops on the street mainly do small business for the residents here, and some office workers in nearby office buildings who are looking for value for money occasionally choose to eat on this old street. For example, breakfast shops, noodle shops, tailor shops, hardware stores, small clinics, convenience stores, etc. Although it is not as good as other lively residential areas, it can still meet basic living needs. After all, the location is within the 2.5 ring road of the urban area. Supplies that are not available in the old street can be bought in the nearby residential area within a 10-minute walk, so it is quite convenient overall. At the right end of the old street, there is another horizontal alley, named Furong Alley. The buildings in this alley are not the two-story houses with shops like those on the old street, but small courtyards with independent entrances. The alley is not very large, and only 7 households live next to it. The alley in the middle of the residential courtyard is relatively narrow and cannot be used for planting greenery. The largest means of transportation that can flexibly enter and exit the alley is a tricycle. Ordinary cars cannot turn around after entering and can only park on the old street. Although the alley is rather bare and monotonous, the style of the houses in the courtyard is very consistent. This building, which is full of age, is also unique. Such old streets and alleys are not unique in this bustling city, but they are very special. Chengdu is the capital city of Sichuan province. It has developed very well in all aspects. In recent years, high-rise buildings have been springing up one after another, and many old houses have been demolished to build office buildings and commercial buildings. Although Furong Street is located on the 2.5 ring road of the main urban area, it does not mean that every place in the main urban area can be effectively developed. Furong Street is just a small branch of the main road. Because the street area is neither too big nor too small, it can only be planned together with the surrounding land. This leads to conflicts in every planning, either the total area exceeds the standard or it does not meet the standard. As it happens, it was Furong Street that was abandoned in the end. As a result, the surrounding areas have been developed, leaving only this old street surrounded by high-rise buildings. The sharp contrast between the new and the old, the bustling and the quiet, makes Furong Street an awkward and special geographical location. Chapter 23: Alleys and Courtyards. At the deepest part of Furong Alley is the in-family home, a very ordinary, old-style courtyard house. And Yang never complained that the courtyard where she lived was too old. To her, this courtyard carried the best times in her memories and was also the greatest legacy her parents left her. This small courtyard is like a safe haven built for her by her parents. As long as she returns home, the negative emotions and fatigue brought to her by the outside world seem to be blocked out, allowing her to completely relax and feel at ease, as if her parents are with her. However, when life was very difficult, she also felt secretly annoyed and indignant, complaining about the injustice of the world. Why was only their old street not developed? Otherwise, with the demolition compensation, her life would not be so tiring. Of course, such depressed emotions are extremely rare. Deep down in her heart, she is more grateful that the old street has not been demolished and she can continue to protect her home with her parents. This alley is not long and you can see the end at a glance. There are 3 households on each side. And Yang's home is at the end of the alley. Entering the courtyard, there is a courtyard of about 20 square meters. 2 small vegetable plots have been cultivated under the walls on both sides, but weeds grow on one side, while some onions and peppers are sparsely planted on the other side. From this we can see that the owner of the courtyard rarely takes care of it and just grows some easy-to-grow condiments and side dishes. There is a hibiscus tree planted next to the right wall of the neighboring courtyard. In May, the branches and leaves are full of lush green. It is said that An's parents chose this small courtyard because there was a beautiful hibiscus tree in the yard. Next to the hibiscus tree, there was a small carport built with simple wooden boards, inside which was a shabby pedal tricycle. This was the means of transportation used by An's parents to transport medicinal materials. Under the courtyard wall on the left, there is a cement wash basin, which is just at waist level and is used for washing clothes. Nowadays, as the times become more and more developed, such wash basins have long become a thing of the past, but the An family still keeps them. Next is the house facing the courtyard gate. The layout of the house is also very simple. The kitchen is on the right side facing outwards, and the room next to it facing inwards is where An's parents lived before, and then there is the bathroom. The room with the window facing outward on the left is Yang's room, and the room next to it facing inward is a pharmacy that was converted from a guest room. Most of the furniture in the house is made of wood and looks quite old. The decoration is also simple and plain, but it exudes a comfortable and warm feeling. After Yang came back from the company, she immediately buried her head in front of her desk and wrote the plan carefully. Although she already had an idea in her mind, she still had to think carefully about how to do it. Her total assets now only add up to 3,000 yuan. If she uses this money for living expenses, it can support her for 1 or 2 months. But if you want to use it to start a business, it would be a bit difficult, not to mention the beauty industry that Yang wants to work in. Therefore, she planned to save as much as possible in the early stage. She planned to hang a sign at the gate of her yard. Anyway, she had no intention of going the physical store sales route, so there was naturally no need to spend money to rent a store. As long as the relevant business licenses are obtained and the business is carried out in a formal manner, everything will be fine. She lives alone in her courtyard, and there is ample space and a pharmacy, which can fully meet the operating conditions of a handicraft workshop. Secondly, it is about how to manage and sell beauty products. As Yang was thinking, she quickly wrote down the ideas in her mind, and the writing and drawing filled up several sheets of draft paper. Chapter 24 Anyanfang. At present, she does not have to worry about production problems, as her own system takes care of everything. The only thing she needs to spend money on is product packaging. According to the system, the beauty products it provides all contain Chinese herbal ingredients that are beneficial to the human body, which is equivalent to cosmeceuticals. Although there are no clear-cut cosmeceutical products in China, there are still many businesses that sell cosmeceuticals under the banner of cosmeceuticals. As to whether they are effective or not, it is hard to say. However, she has great confidence and expectations in the system's beauty products. The existence of the system itself is a miracle, and it is definitely better than those beauty products on the market. Considering the special effects and ingredients of beauty products, the price naturally cannot be too low. Won't that be unworthy of the high-end quality of the system? Therefore, the outer packaging must not be too low. Yang plans to make two kinds of outer packaging, a zip-around brocade bag and a carved wooden box. Since the main product is a beauty product made from Chinese medicinal herbs, she thinks an ancient-style packaging design is more appropriate. In recent years, perhaps everyone has been pursuing things with more modern designs, but through the online world shown in the dream, she learned that there will be a national style trend in the next few years, and many retro things will be dug out and have a very wide range of popularity. Since she has foresight, she naturally has to keep up with the trend of the times. What's more, her cosmeceuticals are products that can help people become more beautiful. Coupled with the elegant ancient-style packaging, they will definitely be liked by everyone. Oh, what should we name it? Yang supported her chin with her left hand and thought. The name of this sign is related to the image of the product. It cannot be too casual and vulgar. It must be catchy and easy for people to remember. However, she thought of more than a dozen names, but still felt that none of them were suitable, so she wrote and drew them over and over again. Forget it, let's just call it Anyanfang. After more than 10 minutes, Yang gave up struggling. She was just bad at naming. It was too difficult for her to come up with a good name. Anyway, what she is in the beauty industry, and many companies are named after surnames, so isn't her name suitable? And means peace, stability and assurance. Yang means appearance and color. The two words together can express that this is a beauty product that can be used with confidence. It also allows customers who purchase the products to understand directly that by using Anyanfang's beauty products, you can keep your appearance beautiful forever. What a wonderful meaning! It is simple and clear, sounds nice, and is in line with the image of the product. There is no signature name that is simpler and easier to understand than hers. The more Yang thought about it, the more she felt that using her own name as the brand name was a good idea. She didn't want to spend time thinking about it, so she made the decision directly. She is the brand herself. So, she immediately went out and knocked on the door of the next door. She only had 15 days to complete the task, so she had to hurry up and complete the preliminary preparations. After all, the subsequent sales were critical, and she didn't know how much time it would take. Living next door are the Liang family, a family of 4, who are old neighbors of the Yin family. After the Yin family's parents passed away, Yang was often taken care of by the Liang family. In addition, the Liang family's youngest daughter, Liang Minute, was the same age as Yang, so the two could be said to be little sisters who grew up together. Therefore, the relationship between the two families has remained good over the years. Chapter 25 Opening a store? The person who opened the door was a middle-aged woman. She was very friendly when she saw Yang. It's Xiaowen. Why did you get off work so early today? I came back because of something. Aunt Hong, is my uncle home? Yang didn't know what to say about her own experience for a moment, so she had to skip this question for the time being. He's at home. He just came back. Come in quickly. Li Hongxie gestured towards the courtyard and then pulled Yang into the courtyard familiarly. At the door of the living room, Liang Jianwen was smoking a water pipe with an old-fashioned pipe. When he saw Yang, he immediately greeted her with a smile. Xiaowen is here. Xiao Minute hasn't come back yet. Li Hongxia said angrily, okay, stop smoking that broken cigarette of yours. Xiaoan is here to see you. Looking for me. What's the matter? Liang Jianwen put down the cigarette pipe in confusion. And Yang said bluntly, Uncle, I want you to make a sign for me. It's urgent. How soon can I get it? What kind of sign? Are there any requirements for the wood? Liang Jianwen is an experienced carpenter who is proficient in many woodwork. When talking about his professional field, his expression becomes much more serious. Just simple red words on a wooden background will do. And Yang is in a hurry to set up the stall now, so she doesn't have the time to consider so many details. She can improve it slowly after the business is established. Can you tell me more about it? Liang Jianwen asked. So, and Yang briefly expressed her ideas about the signboard. And Yang Fang. Liang Jianwen was stunned when he heard the sign name. What does this mean? Li Hongxia had been sitting next to them. When she heard in Yang's words, she couldn't help but said, Xiaoan, what are you going to do? Are you going to open a store? Before Yang could explain, a clear voice suddenly spoke, open a store? Who wants to open a store? Liang Minute only heard the last part of the sentence when he entered the yard, so he asked casually. Li Hongxia quickly said, it's about Xiaoan. Your father and I are listening to it. No way. Yang, you want to open a store? Where will you get the money? Hearing this, Liang Minute rushed to Yang and squeezed onto a stool with her without any hesitation, with concern and anxiety on his face. Yang didn't mind the younger sister's frank words at all. She understood Xiaomin's personality, just as she knew her family background. Looking at the three people from the Liang family with concerned expressions on their faces, Yang felt warm in her heart. Although her loving parents have been gone for more than 4 years, she is still lucky because there are still so many people around her who truly care about her. I quit. As soon as she heard the beginning, the straightforward Liang Minute started yelling, resign. What's going on? Why did you resign when everything was fine? Did someone bully you? Although she and Yang were not from the same university, she knew a lot about her affairs. She also knew that her good sister was preparing for the pharmacist license exam. She had been working hard for more than 3 months. How could she resign for no reason? The most important thing is that she knows Yang's personality very well. She is not someone who gives up easily, so the problem is definitely not with Yang. Ever since Uncle and his family passed away in her second year of high school, Yang has been subject to criticism, especially exclusion and slander from her own sex. She really didn't understand. Her daughter Yang was born beautiful. Was that wrong? Just because Yang is beautiful, she must be a restless bad woman. What kind of weird logic is this? How can someone who is prettier than herself be so malicious? Chapter 26 Liang Family. Liang Minute felt indignant and really felt sorry for her good sister. Yang, is this a problem with your company? You've been doing a good job, why are you letting people go for no reason? I'll go and ask them for an explanation. Yang quickly took Liang Min's hand and comforted her softly, no. Don't worry, I just don't want to do it. Just listen to me first. Li Hongxia reached out and patted her daughter, saying earnestly, when will you change your impetuous temper? Don't run away when you hear something. Liang Minute smiled awkwardly and sat back on the stool obediently. Yang, go ahead. In fact, I propose to resign on my own. I had long wanted to quit this job. Taikang Pharmaceutical is indeed a well-known company, but I feel that the internal atmosphere is not very good. The sales department wanted to transfer me there before. After I refused, they asked me to attend 2 drinking parties in the name of business. I really didn't like their behavior, so I went to the company to resign in the afternoon. In front of the Liang family, Yang didn't feel there was anything to be shy about, so she told the story truthfully, but there was no need to go into detail about the specific details. Besides, it's not nice to talk about such things, and she is more or less embarrassed. Just stop at the right time, and those who should understand will naturally understand. What a lousy company. They can do such a thing. How shameless. Yang, you did a good job. This lousy company is not worth your life at all. If you leave them, you will definitely find a better company. Liang Minute was filled with rage. If she hadn't taken her parents' presence into consideration, she would have definitely cursed Taikang Pharmaceutical to the hell. Her parents are both honest, ordinary people. Perhaps they haven't understood the deeper meaning of Yin Yan's words, and they don't know how deep the waters are in some industries. People like them who have no power or influence are simply not taken seriously by those people. Just sit still. Li Hongxia held down her impatient daughter and turned to look at An Yang with a serious face. Xiaowen, are you really okay? If you really suffered any injustice in the company, don't keep it in your heart. Although your uncle Liang and I are not your biological parents, we have treated you as our own daughter over the years. We may not be able to do big things, but we can still do small things within our capabilities, so you are not alone, don't do it alone, understand? And Jirong and Yang Ruhua were such good people, but it was a pity that they died young. If they had not been so generous, who knows what would have happened to their son? The Liang family will never forget this kindness. Now that the An family has only one daughter left, the couple will naturally do their best to take care of her. Liang Jianwen immediately agreed, your aunt is right, if you have anything to say, we can discuss it together. And Yang was very moved and couldn't help feeling a little emotional. The old saying is true, a distant relative is not as good as a close neighbor. Her uncle, who is related to her by blood, is not as good as her neighbor who has no relatives or friends with her. In the beginning, her parents took great care of her uncle's family, supporting them financially and physically, but in the end, they were ignored by them. Back then, my parents only borrowed a sum of money to help Uncle Liang and his family take care of their son's medical treatment. The money was eventually repaid in full, but Uncle Liang and his family have always remembered this kindness, and even turned their gratitude to their parents into love for themselves. Thinking about what happened in the dream, An Yang was completely disappointed with her uncle's family. Chapter 27 Reason. Uncle Liang, Aunt Hong, I'm fine. Thank you for your concern. The reason why I decided to resign, besides not liking the company's culture, is another reason. I want to do things on my own. No matter how good a company is, it still depends on who you work for, so I want to try starting my own business. The reason I had this idea was that I found a tattered notebook when I was sorting out old things at home some time ago. All of them are recipes related to beauty and skin care. Although some of the words have faded, I can still come up with a new recipe after careful study. You also know that I majored in pharmacy in college. Just these 2 days I figured out a skin care recipe. I plan to hang a sign at home and open a workshop to make some beauty products. It should be no problem to support myself, and I will feel more comfortable this way. This is the excuse that An Yang had prepared for the outside world. It was okay for people who were not familiar with her, and she didn't need to explain. But for those who were very familiar with her, it was not so easy to fool them. For example, her high school and college classmates, colleagues, and neighbors in Furong Alley, all of them know her family situation and personal conditions. Secondly, everyone knows her personality to some extent. They know that she has completed her studies by working part-time all these years and lives a very frugal life. I guess in everyone's eyes, people like her should work hard to find a stable job. Not to mention others, even she herself thought so before. After all, how can a person who can't even make ends meet have the confidence and resources to start a business? Moreover, she is a recent graduate majoring in pharmacy and does not have much practical experience. How could she suddenly be able to make beauty products? Nothing happens without a reason in this world. If she tries to hide the truth, it will only arouse suspicion. It would be better for her to reveal the reason herself. Sure enough, after hearing An Yang's words, the Liang family believed it without any doubt. Liang Jianwen nodded repeatedly, that's right, 3 generations of your family have worked in pharmaceutical factories. Your father was even a drug inspector. Your family has a long history of pharmaceutical manufacturing. That's good. Instead of working for others, it's better to be your own boss, even if you're just a small boss. It's more comfortable than working in a company. Xiaowen, you studied this major in college anyway, so it's not a waste of knowledge. Li Hongxia was a little worried at first, but after listening to An Yang's clear and logical explanation, she thought that this must be a decision she had made after careful consideration. What's more, An Yang is alone and has no burden. If she is well fed, their whole family will not be hungry. Even if she doesn't go to work in the company, she can support herself by doing anything. Liang Minute nudged An Yang's arm with her elbow and praised her profusely, sister, you are amazing. You were just tinkering with herbs before, but now you can even develop beauty products on your own. It's true that you should be impressed by others after 3 days of absence. I didn't expect that my family had a collection of beauty recipes. It was also luck. And Yang replied with a smile. Liang Jianwen recalled, I remember your dad always loved reading, and so did your grandpa. When he had nothing to do, he would go to the scrapyard to look for some old books. Li Hongxie glared at the man, secretly disliking him for not being able to speak, and then began to express her own guess. Maybe it's a secret recipe passed down by the Yin family. I heard from Grandpa and that one of their ancestors was a doctor. Maybe it was left by their ancestors, but Grandpa and the Yin brothers don't have the talent in this area, so the formula has not been figured out. Chapter 28 Secret Recipe. And Yang was really surprised. Is there such a thing? To be honest, she really didn't know. Perhaps it was because she was too young at the time and paid attention to different things, but she had the impression that her father really seemed to like reading. Originally, she just wanted to find a reasonable explanation for her behavior, so she pushed it onto her deceased family members. After all, no one could verify the facts. She never expected that Uncle Liang and the others could actually help her explain their reason. In this way, her abrupt behavior became even more legitimate and aboveboard. Liang Minute actively agreed, Mom is right. Yang is a talented person. When she was in elementary school, she learned about medicinal herbs from Uncle Lin. When she was in junior high school, she was still learning prescriptions and tinkering with medicinal materials. She is much better than us. Then Liang Minute looked at Yang again, Sister, don't be so modest. I'm waiting for the day when you become a pharmaceutical master. But, when will the new product you're researching be ready? I want to be the first to try it. Okay, when I make the finished product, I'll give it to you first. And Yang smiled happily. After chatting with the Liang family for a while, Yang left before dinner. Even if she had a good relationship with the Liang family, she was embarrassed to always eat and drink for free. Yang had another bowl of egg noodles for dinner. She lived alone and didn't have too many desires and requirements for food, so she just kept it as simple and easy as possible. After finishing dinner early, Yang was eager to try out the beauty recipe given by the system. She summoned the system panel with her mind, and then tried to click on the operation room. Suddenly, Yang found herself in an extremely clean and tidy room. It felt like a 3D holographic image was projected around her. The style of this room is similar to that of a kitchen, except that compared to the high-tech kitchen design, it has 2 more worktops, on which are placed some instruments and tools for making products. Yang happily touched around and looked around curiously. She was very happy and satisfied with this operating room, which was better than laboratory number 1 in their school. Seeing that it was already 7 o'clock, Yang did not delay any longer and immediately called out the recipe for ancient rose ointment. While looking at it, she took out the raw materials from the storage room. When she first got the recipe, she just glanced at it roughly. Now that she looked at it carefully, she found that there were many details that needed attention. She had tried to make some things before, but they were all very simple and mostly modifications based on the original recipes, so she didn't have to worry about failure. But the secret recipe given by the system is different, and it can be said to be unique in the world. If the process is not operated properly, it is easy to produce a failed product. Fortunately, this ancient rose ointment is not too difficult to make. According to the system, the initial secret recipe should be the simplest, and the subsequent recipes will definitely become more and more difficult. Yang felt that she needed to read more books on pharmaceuticals to expand her knowledge base. Otherwise, when others asked her about the sources, she wouldn't be able to tell them. Wouldn't that be embarrassing and suspicious? Now that I have decided to take this path, I must make myself a more professional person. No matter how many secret recipes the system gives you, if you don't work hard to make them your own, they cannot be considered to be completely yours. Chapter 29 Experiment. Finally succeeded. Yang looked at the rose ointment in her hand with joy. This rose ointment was only the size of a child's fist, and its shape and color were the same as a rose. Although she didn't know how the mold was made, the shape it printed out really looked like a rose, with layered petals, very delicate and beautiful, just like a work of art on display. She was so reluctant to get it wet when using it. She was sure that there was absolutely no such exquisite and beautiful rose ointment on the market today. Yang was so excited that she couldn't calm down for a long time. She didn't expect that she could make such a beautiful thing. Secondly, she didn't expect that the secret recipe didn't look difficult, but it was still a bit troublesome to actually operate. Fortunately, the system would give her 3 opportunities to practice every time she made a new secret recipe. Otherwise, she would be deducted points and be in debt before she even made any money. According to the system's instructions, she can earn 10 points for every person she sells a beauty product to, and 1,000 points can be used to purchase 100,000 pieces of raw materials in the material library. This conversion rate is simply too good to be true. In other words, if she completes the sales task for 100 people this time, the points she gains can be exchanged for 100,000 pieces of raw materials for the ancient rose ointment at no cost at all. Of course, the prerequisite for getting the benefits is to successfully complete the task. 308. Are you sure there's nothing wrong with the product this time? While Yang was overjoyed, she did not forget to confirm with the system again, mainly because she was scared by the system. She had done it twice before, but both times the products were rejected as unqualified. In fact, in her personal opinion, the finished products of the first 2 times were still very good. Unfortunately, the system gave an unsatisfactory evaluation result. She originally thought that as long as she followed the secret recipe steps, there would be no problem with the finished product, but she didn't know that the system would still judge her finished product. The system requirements are almost perfect. Even the slightest flaw is unacceptable, and the products produced must be exactly the same as the secret recipe. There is no way, because the system is the biggest financial sponsor. If it says the products are unqualified, it cannot sell them itself. Therefore, Yang could only follow the steps on the secret recipe step by step. This product is very successful, please keep up the good work. After hearing the system's answer, Yang felt relieved instantly. If she still failed, she would have to fight with the rose ointment tonight. Because I was practicing, I made a portion each time. Although I failed twice, I didn't waste too much material. It's so late. You should rest first and do it tomorrow. Yang glanced at her watch and found that it was almost 11 o'clock in the evening, and she usually went to bed before 10 o'clock. Because she has to get up early to work the next day, she has to go to bed early to ensure that she has enough energy, otherwise it will affect her work state the next day. Therefore, she never has the habit of staying up late or sleeping late. Yang left the operating room with the rose ointment. This operating room is equipped with automatic cleaning and sterilization functions. Nothing other than instruments and equipment can be placed in it, otherwise they will all be cleared away. Staying in the operation room makes people forget the time, and before they know it, she has been making products for several hours. After leaving the operating room, she immediately felt sleepy. After quickly washing up, Yang went to bed. When she thought of the rose ointment she had successfully made, she felt at ease. She fell asleep slowly with a happy and relaxed mood. Chapter 30 Rose Balm. The next day, after a simple breakfast, Yang went into the operating room. Last night, for practice, I made the rose ointment in portions using some small tools. If I wanted to sell in large quantities, this method of making it in portions would definitely not work. Fortunately, small equipment and tools are only used for training or making some small products. Although the equipment in the operating room cannot produce in large quantities like an assembly line factory, it can still produce 100 copies each time. Looking at the various equipment and tools on the operating table, Yang was dazzled and couldn't help but secretly admire, you are indeed a beauty-loving person on this planet. Even the tools used to make the products are classified, and different styles of beauty products use different equipment. It's really meticulous and sophisticated. After Yang selected the corresponding tools according to the standards on the secret recipe, she took out the raw materials, began to boil and purify them, and then mixed and stirred them according to the ratio of the secret recipe. Finally, pour the prepared thick liquid into the mold and wait for half an hour for the ointment to be almost formed. After leaving it alone for an hour, the rose ointment will be completely stable. This type of ointment can be considered a kind of soap, but it is more delicate in appearance and more fragrant than ordinary soap. Having practiced 3 times last night, Yang was able to complete 100 copies smoothly this time. Looking at the 2 full plates of rose ointment, Yang felt particularly satisfied and accomplished. Now the only trace of concerns and worries in her heart were completely gone. So, Yang carried the mold board out of the operating room. Although the rose ointment had been made, there was still one last step left, which was to let it sit and air dry for an hour. She placed the 2 mold plates directly on the water platform to dry, and they could be demolded after an hour. Once the product is ready, the next step is packaging. She also planned to let Uncle Liang be responsible for the wooden box packaging. It didn't matter who did it. Besides, Uncle Liang was very skilled in woodworking. Instead of letting others make the money, it would be better for Uncle Liang to make it. It can also be regarded as my way of thanking their family for taking care of me over the years. As for packaging like brocade bags, you can only go to the wholesale market in the north of the city in person. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. Seeing that there was still plenty of time, and Yang didn't want to waste it, so she quickly picked up her bag and went out. Now that the biggest cost has been saved, the only thing she needs to spend money on is probably the outer packaging. However, compared with the cost of production and raw materials, this packaging fee is nothing. Wholesale market in the north of the city. Today is not the weekend, so there are not too many people around. And Yang ran towards the packaging wholesale store with a clear purpose. After some comparison and selection, Yang finalized the cooperation with 2 wholesalers. The quantity she purchases now may not be large, but according to the system, the workload will definitely double in the future. She doesn't want to run to the wholesale market every time she needs outer packaging. That would be so tiring. Now that she has negotiated a cooperation with her boss, she doesn't have to run there in person. She just needs to make a phone call to the wholesaler boss and the goods will be delivered directly to her door. However, after visiting the packaging store, Yang realized that there were so many packaging supplies, and the 2 types of packaging she had previously planned were not enough. In addition to the brocade bags, there are also wax paper that is moisture-proof and damage-proof, small ropes for binding the wax paper, tassels that can decorate the wooden boxes, fillers in the wooden boxes, and so on.